So I started up a game of the Stanley Parable, just to see what I could break.
All of his co-workers were... Wait, no. This isn't the right office, is it? Is this Stanley's office?
I hate when the narrator says stuff like that. It always gives me chills. So my plan is essentially to go to the jump circle and give myself infinite jumping.
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
I got the idea of trying to break the game by jumping everywhere when I was playing, and I got the bottom of the mind control room ending, and it made me think I could probably jump off other rails and be stuck in the same type of scenario, only this time with no dialogue, or maybe I could even clip through a wall.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but
I had to cut this part out because I stood here waiting for the elevator door to open on the other side
right.
because I hadn't noticed the door was open right behind me.
The jump circle?
So once I got to the jump circle, I jumped and I restarted the game. With my newfound power to jump, I decided to jump on everything in the office. I jumped on my own desk.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
And then I jumped on my coworker's
Stanley
desk.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
My plan was to go down on the right side and see what I could jump
Stanley came to a set
on.
of two open doors. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. It was okay.
I've taken this path so many times that the narrator just says it was okay when
Stanley
I entered
took
the
first
employee
open
lounge.
door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible
I wanted
he
to see
wasn't
if I
5
could
years
walk around
ago.
the edge of the fence. So my plan was to jump on the boxes and then jump on the fence. I had no idea you can just jump through the section of the fence, so I looked around, didn't find much, so I used the lift and headed up.
To make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me.
The first thing I did was jump on the boxes and try to jump over the fence to see if I could get to the boxes on the other side. When that wasn't working, I decided
This
to
is
try
it,
and jump on the
Stanley.
generator
Your
and see if I
chance
could
to
enter the
redeem
window.
yourself.
But then I decided to
put
jump
your
back
work
on the fence.
aside,
But
to let her
I couldn't
back
get to the
into
other
your
side of the
life.
fence because there was a big
She's
pipe in the
been
way.
waiting.
So I decided to go back to the boxes one last time. I looked over the platform, saw the lift, and thought, I wonder what would happen if I changed courses halfway through the game. Would he acknowledge me jumping onto the platform below? And so I decided to give it a try. And with a walking jump, I decided, I can make it. And so I jumped, but to everyone's surprise, I missed horribly.
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
I heard the telephone ringing, so I decided to answer. However, surprisingly, when the interact button is also your jump button, it's incredibly difficult to actually interact with anything. So it took me a few tries, but I got it.
Good morning. Thank you for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation. We are confirming your shipment of 1,327 cardboard boxes to your place of work. Can you verify that this is correct? Excellent. Your order will arrive shortly. Thank you again for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation.
Now, with my shipment of 132 cardboard boxes on the way, I could continue. By now, I'm sure you noticed, there was some sort of blinking or random blurs in the video. And that's because my capture card was struggling a little bit. I had to change my settings a few times, and this was the best I could get it for today.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
I wanted to see if I could jump through the ceiling by jumping on the cabinets, and then I dropped off into the window, and I thought, if this window is like this, are all of them? And so, I decided to test the one next to it. And it was exactly the same. I decided to head back to the employee lounge to see if there was anything I can jump on.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. It was okay. But eager to get back to business,
I jumped on the
Stanley
copy
took the
machine
first open
and
door
then walked
on his
away.
left.
But then I thought, what if I could clip through the ceiling? And so I sat here for about the next 4 minutes or so trying to jump through the ceiling. But I wasn't going to make you guys sit through that, so I cut it out. Instead, you guys can watch me try and jump on this chair like a dumbass.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
I wanted to go down the vent. The first thing I did was jump through the window.
Stanley
And then
had now
I decided
gotten
to
himself
look
so
at
far off
all the
beaten
papers
path
lying
that
on
it
the
seemed
floor.
the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path that it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path
I decided to head over to the printer and try to jump through the ceiling. However, it did nothing, and I sat here for a good minute, just trying.
That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path.
I tried jumping on the railing, but I accidentally jumped over it. And now, I was stuck under here. I aimlessly jumped around, hoping that I didn't have to restart. However, I ended up having to restart it.
That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path. That it seemed the office had begun from so far off the beaten path.
On this restart, all the boxes I ordered had finally came in.
Hi, Stanley. Just wanted to leave you a message to let you know there's a few things I need you to pick up on your way home from work today. We need milk, cereal,
After
dish
walking
soap,
around on top of the
spaghetti,
boxes,
get
I
a thing of
realized
sugar,
that the doors
some
around would
bread,
disappear
and
when I would
coffee
clip
beans,
through the
whichever ones
ceiling.
you like.
So I
I'll
thought,
give you a call if
what
there's anything
if
I
I could get the door
Thanks,
to
sweetie. See
disappear
you today.
permanently whenever I clip through the ceiling? I tried getting the achievement 430, but the narrator clearly didn't feel like talking. Maybe it was because I had jumped off the railing, or maybe he was mad at me for cluttering the office with boxes. Who's to say why he refused to talk to me? But I went into the other room and tried the same exact thing. I jumped all around the office, and instantly, all the doors disappeared, but when I came back down, the doors reappeared. So while jumping on the plant, I realized the plant was next to the door 420, and I thought that was pretty ironic. I think now's a good time to mention that I'm playing the Stanley Parable on the Nintendo Switch. At this point, you can tell my graphics card is really struggling to keep up. Usually I'd skip something like this, however I decided if I have to sit here and watch this, you guys do too. I hope you enjoy watching me jump around in Office. Well, thank you. This took me about 3 days to make. I'm not even done editing all of it. This is just one part in what will probably be a 3-part series, but maybe not. I'm not sure yet. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could just hit the like button for all the hard work I put in. Or don't. It's up to you.